Okay, we need to talk about a failure in your car, one that doesn't just slow you down. No, this one actively works against you, turning a critical safety system into the very thing that can cause you to lose control. And it all starts with a part you've probably never even thought about.
Look, every single day, you get in your car, you press that brake pedal, and the car stops. It feels totally reliable, perfectly safe, right? And then in that split second of a panic stop, that feeling of safety just vanishes. A tiny hidden part fails, and the system that was designed to save your life is the exact reason you're now in a spin. This isn't some random accident. It's a predictable and, it turns out, a preventable failure. So let's get into how this actually happens.
To really understand why this system fails, we first have to appreciate the incredible piece of engineering at work here. We're going to have to shrink way down and take a look at the world inside your car's ABS unit.
So during an emergency stop, these little valves have to handle just immense force, almost instantly. We're talking about 180 bar of hydraulic pressure. Now to put that in perspective, that's like stacking 60 fully inflated car tires onto an area the size of your thumbnail. It's a huge amount of force. And here's the really critical part. The little plunger inside that valve, it operates with a clearance of just 5 microns. So you've got this incredible pressure being controlled by a tiny part moving in a gap that is almost impossibly small.
Just to give you a sense of that scale, a single human hair is about 70 microns thick. So the gap this plunger is flying back and forth in is more than 10 times smaller than a hair. Now, this crazy precision is what lets the system react in milliseconds, but it's also its greatest weakness. There is zero room for error and absolutely no room for any kind of contamination.
So if the engineering is so precise, what could possibly cause it to fail? Well, the enemy here isn't one big catastrophic event. It's a slow, silent process of decay. It's a kind of invisible sabotage that really starts the day your car rolls off the assembly line.
The whole problem kicks off with the brake fluid itself. You see, most brake fluids are hygroscopic, which is really just a fancy way of saying they love to absorb water. It literally pulls moisture right out of the air, and that water sets off a devastating chain reaction inside your supposedly sealed brake system.
And this is that brutal 4-step cascade of failure. First, moisture gets sucked into the fluid. Second, that water starts to corrode the steel and iron parts from the inside out. Third, this corrosion creates these microscopic particles of rust. And finally, where do you think those tiny particles go? Yep, straight for that 5-micron clearance in the ABS valve.
Now here's what's so wild and kind of counterintuitive about this whole thing. You'd think a bigger piece of junk would be worse, right? But it's not. Particles that are too big can't even get into that tiny gap. And particles that are super small just flow right through. It's the particles in this danger zone between 5 and 15 microns, the exact size to get wedged in there, that can lodge themselves perfectly and jam that valve solid.
And this is the cruelest irony of the entire system. This failure doesn't happen when you're just gently driving to the store. No, it happens during a full-on panic brake. That's when hydraulic pressure is at its absolute maximum, and it's also when the ABS pump motor is putting a heavy load on the electrical system. This can actually cause the voltage to sag, reducing the power going to the valve. It is the perfect storm, and it reveals the failure at the exact moment you cannot afford for anything to go wrong.
The final piece of this invisible sabotage? Dormancy. I mean, think about it for a second. When was the last time your ABS actually kicked in? For most of us, it's been months, maybe even years. And all that time, these critical little valves are just sitting there, completely stationary and untested, while moisture slowly builds up and corrosion silently spreads.
Okay, so we've got a microscopic valve that's been jammed by microscopic particles. What does that actually mean from the driver's seat? How does this tiny internal failure translate into a complete, absolutely terrifying loss of control on the road?
Well, the physics behind it is something called a yaw moment. It's basically the rotational force on a car. When you brake hard and all 4 wheels are being controlled properly, the car stops straight. But if one single valve sticks, the braking force becomes massively unbalanced, and that creates this powerful, violent twisting force on the car.
The results are immediate, and they are disastrous. If a stuck valve causes a front wheel to lock up, you instantly lose all ability to steer. The car is just going to plow straight ahead, doesn't matter how you turn the wheel. And if a rear wheel locks, well, the back of the car tries to become the front, initiating a spin that can be completely unrecoverable at highway speeds.
This chart says it all. And look, it's not just about stopping a few meters longer. Who cares about that? The real danger is the uncontrolled spin part. A healthy ABS system brings you to a stable, straight stop. A system with one stuck valve, well, it might stop you eventually, but probably not before it's thrown you sideways into another lane of traffic.
All right, after hearing all of that, you might be thinking this is some complex, unavoidable disaster waiting to happen. But it's not. The defense against this catastrophic failure is, and you're not going to believe this, it's shockingly simple, it's cheap, and it's completely within your control.
So how do we fight back? How do we stop this silent decay and make sure our #1 safety system is actually going to work when we desperately need it? The answer isn't some high-tech, expensive fix. It all comes down to basic, disciplined maintenance.
Here it is, your actionable checklist. First, and this is the big one, you have to flush your brake fluid every 2 years, period. Not when it looks dark, every 2 years, because the water contamination is totally invisible. Second, always use the right spec fluid for your car. Don't cheap out. Third, take a look at the rubber brake hoses. They can break down from the inside. And finally, if that ABS light ever comes on, get it checked out immediately. It is the only warning you are ever going to get.
So, the crucial thing to take away from all this is simple. Your brakes feel fine every single day because you are not actually testing the ABS system. Those valves are just sitting there, dormant, degrading, waiting for that one single emergency in years of driving. And the one factor that will determine if they work or if they betray you is the quality of the fluid around them. Don't let 2 years of simple neglect cause a 2-second catastrophe.